Hi, welcome to Valuation Podcast, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Gragg, and I'm a mediator and business valuation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, I'm speaking with Loretta Tarozaite, who's located in Las Vegas, and we're speaking about communication and the importance of communication and marketing alignment. Loretta is an executive presence strategist. She helps companies achieve their business goals through cohesive and effective marketing and communication strategies that combine the power of storytelling, video marketing, branding, digital marketing, public relations, and more. Welcome, Loretta. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much, Melissa. Happy to be here and share my knowledge with your audience.
Absolutely. So we've been talking a lot about the importance of executives to have a presence and communication and marketing. And part of that was trying to understand, how does kind of pulling together communication, marketing, and how can it build even investor confidence, right? For companies that might be going into mergers and acquisitions. But realistically, if we just start at the basic level, like what do executives really need to know about what their message is telling other people and when it is not cohesive, right?
Yes, a lot of times executives don't know what is cohesive and not cohesive. They are usually focused on growing the business, developing products or services, making sure that the sales are happening and the revenue is generated. But they rarely think about communicating and telling the story about their business, right? Oh, it's a marketing thing. We'll have them handle that. But in order to tell the story effectively, marketing and communications people, they need to understand that story themselves, right? So where does that story reside? It's in the executives' heads. It's in the key stakeholders' heads inside the organization. This initial core team who started the company, who founded the company, they know why they did it. So the goal for the communications and marketing person is to extrapolate and then project it outside, so that it resonates, right? So the importance the important piece here is that executives need to understand that they can't only just run with a business. At some point in time, they have to pause and think, okay, now we've garnered some type of market share in the market, right? What's important right now is growing the brand equity. So in order to grow the brand equity, you have to elevate yourself as a leader. You have to ensure that all the teams inside the organization are aligned with the business goals of where the business is going next, and that they are clear in what type of stories we now need to tell. Do we need to do more keynotes, for those executives so that the brand recognition extends through those avenues, right? Do we need to attend more industry events and have sort of keynote presentations in industry events? So that sometimes is an afterthought. And it's more like this vague marketing thing that we have to do. I don't care about it. Somebody organize it for me, right? But executives have to start caring because they are the brand for the company that they represent.
Well, and you said something specifically about founders. And in the business world, a founder really could be running the business for 20, 30 years, right? And they have this whole method. For the most part, they may have a website. They've created their mission statement a long time ago, like all of these things. But now they might be considering, like in 5 or 10 years, to sell their company. And I think that exactly what you're saying, this executive is like, well, my marketing company handles it. Like, how would a founder, do they need to start going through and relooking at like their mission and all of those pieces? Or is this really like just creating a story that tells it better? Like, because they might think I've already told my story. Like right? I already
Yep.
told it once, kind of thing. Like, what does that really mean for a founder who is maybe contemplating doing that? And they're like, well, we've been operating for decades. We already have that message out there. Is that, do they need to be like re-looking at it every so often, or just put it on autopilot?
They definitely need to be relooking, but let's sort of distinguish mission statement versus storytelling. Mission statement will always be there, right? It's the why you started the business, why you're doing what you're doing. That's your mission statement. That's your North Star that's always guiding you. You have it on top of your documents or wherever you keep that mission statement. That's like the high level umbrella. The challenge is, how do you now tell the story of that represents that mission statement? Where do those story gems reside in the organization? Who are the people that have to embody that story, right? And that's where the disconnect is. To your point, yes, well, we created it. Yes, the mission stays the same, right? But how do you tell that story? Through innovative ways. We video as a medium, as I said before, keynotes, as a medium, attending the events, ad campaigns, whatever that essentially exposure that you want to achieve about your organization, whatever avenues and tactics you take. How do you tell that consistent story throughout all the communication channels is what's important to embody that mission statement. And that's what founders do not understand, because they're not necessarily natural communicators, right? They know what drives them, but they're not there to communicate. This has to be done with teams who understand storytelling, who understand communications, who understand marketing, to connect all those dots together.
Now, is this a situation that, like, I'm the founder, but I have a team of executives, right? Maybe 3 or 4 very key people. Is this where I'm getting them involved with some of the storytelling, or am I really, or do I have to be the person as the founder that's telling these stories?
Yeah, as the company starts growing, or has been, for example, in existence for so many years, and there's core team driving the business, right? To me, storytelling, it doesn't come from one person. It doesn't even have to be the founder alone. It's key stakeholders. It's employees who are in the grunts, in the lowest food chain, as we call it, doing the work, that contributes to the business. Those stories are everywhere inside the organization. You meet with a customer with a PowerPoint presentation. Well, you have to tell a story there. Why should one work with you versus your competitor, right? So those stories are everywhere. It's making it consistent through every communication avenue that we take is what we need to think about. And this could be from any executive leadership team, depending again on the size of the organization. Sometimes there could be PR teams involved, because it becomes about reputation management, as the company starts growing, a reputation management and building the right reputation, in the external world. So understanding how do you communicate the culture, because we want to obviously attract new talent into the organizations. So people are looking at the culture of those organizations. How do you tell the story beyond, we have free lunches, what is the actual culture? What do you expect, when you join our team? What are our values, right? And you communicate that as well. And it has to consistently, again, dissipate through different types of mediums, in the digital world as well.
Well, and I think that some hesitation that people have and business owners have, founders have, is really showcasing their employees. Like, what if that employee leaves? We have a company called Drury Hotels, and they did an entire marketing campaign recently that showcased their 23-year employee, their 40-year employee, their 26 years of service. I mean, they had like 10 or 20 employees and all of the different, HR, services, everything, all different kinds of people, all different people that had been there for a long time. I think it was hugely powerful to me, because I was like, wow, that's a lot of long-term, and I know that the company has that viewpoint in their, like, it's one thing they talk about that, but it's another for them to show it. Do you think that is a hesitation for companies to showcase their people? Because what if they leave? Or
What if,
yeah.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but what if they leave will always exist. But I think what has been happening recently is, and actually I experienced that through different interviews that I was conducting to hire for this one company, to build out their corporate marketing team. And there were specific roles that I needed to help fill in that organization. And I noticed that people, and doesn't matter how old or young they are in terms of looking for jobs, They're looking for that consistency, and they want to be loyal to the organization. What I think the tech world has created is, well, we need to show the results to our investors and the board. We need to fire. We need to fire a bunch of people so that the bottom line shows that we saved some money and the revenue numbers are good. And that does not build a good culture. I'm not a culture coach, but that definitely something people are feeling, right? And then come the good wave, in the economy. Now let's hire everybody back again at a double of the price, so that they come back or new people come in, right? Let's overlay all these roles again with multiple rounds of management teams, and then come the bad times, let's fire again. So it's this roller coaster of emotions for employees, and I think people are getting tired of it. They want to be loyal to the company, but the company also has to deliver that loyalty, right? They have to communicate and share consistently the stories that make those employees believe that they're there in the long run. Now, obviously, people who jump careers, sometimes people just get bored, and of course they will leave. But I think what has to happen is companies have to start rethinking, especially larger organizations. They have to rethink how they actually value their employees. And I've experienced that myself when I was in corporate world. It's like you sit in the town hall meeting and you hear executives glorifying, oh, without you, we can't do anything. 2 weeks later, we're firing 50%. It's like, it's a massive disconnect. And I think people are fed up with this disconnect, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I want to talk about some more of these details, but I think that it would be maybe helpful to talk about, like, when you come into a company and they hire you to come in, are you first kind of looking at their internal communication, their external communication, their marketing strategies? Like, what is your first steps to try to identify what they're doing right or wrong or indifferent? And is it really about like consistency in some capacity?
Yes, so I have a four-step process, and the very first one is a prerequisite to anything I do, which is I have to do a deep dive. I have to understand. I do the scan of the landscape, digital landscape. I look for the presence. Are executives out there? If they're out there, what kind of avenues are using to be out there? Is the brand looking consistent? Is the story consistent? How much of a story is there to begin with? Is it just a website just to, put some product information and specs and that's it? Or is there storytelling? So I scout the digital landscape. If they provide me the list of the competitors, I look at what competitors are doing so that we can have kind of a comparison chart or assessment of sorts, to see, okay, well, here's what they're doing and they're quite successful. I look at the analytics, how much traffic the website is generating. And sometimes the website is just there. It's not necessarily the only place, to track things. But I do the digital landscape. And then that informs me what's missing potentially internally, right? Then let's say if there's lack of media presence from the executive, that means they don't have a PR team, right? So then I go and see, okay, well, who's doing your press releases? Are you doing them at all? Again, it all depends on the size of the business. I'm kind of generalizing, right? If social media, I posted something, 5 months ago and then it went dead, well, that means they probably don't have somebody who's managing those accounts. Because as owners and business owners and entrepreneurs and founders in early stages, we do everything, right? And then it's like, this is not a priority. I'm going to just forget about it for now. And then I'll return to it at some point in time. So that informs me what is missing inside the organization. And in the organization, my approach is I try to understand how the information flows. My background is, TV journalism. I come from communications background. So to me, broken links always start in the communication as a foundation. Is the information flowing? Does the executive talk to his team? If they talk, do they understand what he said? Does the team understand what the business goals are? And do they understand how to then execute externally different initiatives that are aligned with those business goals? So that deep dive that I do, I look at a lot of different things. But like I said, I'm not a leadership coach, I'm not a culture coach, but I can see what's missing and the impact it does on the people. Let's say why people are leaving, why people are not staying long, and then I can work with people who with experts who can, let's say, do culture coaching, bring them on board and have them do the training, right? So yeah, so
Yeah.
so it's a four-step process. Once we define, once I see those as they call bleeding arteries, that's not my terminology, I heard it and I liked it. Bleeding arteries, then okay, let's prioritize what we need to fix. What is the immediate goal short term that we need to fix? Let's focus on that. If you don't have the resource, let's hire, let's contract, let's figure out, and then gradually add layers, to that fixing model. Yeah.
Well, and I think that one of the things that you said, which is kind of interesting, and most business owners kind of just go right into social media, right? And they'll approach anybody and they'll be like, "Okay, what should I do on TikTok? I heard that it's big. Like I heard I could make a ton of money. What could I do on Instagram? Like Reels? Is it Reels? Should I be doing shorts? Like what about YouTube?" And it's interesting because what you're talking about is at an executive level, there's strategy and there's execution. And in some capacity, talk to me more about like, because execution is really like, what do we do on TikTok? What do we do on Instagram? But strategy is really where it's at in globally as an executive, as a founder. How are you setting the stage for the big strategy? And where should we put our focus on as an owner?
Yes, and a lot of times, owners or founders, they don't know what communication and marketing strategy should look like, right? I experience again as well. Whenever I go to different networking meetings, I always test out. If I say these words, how does it resonate to people, right? If I say, okay, I'm doing marketing, oh, so it's social media. Some people say, oh, so it's branding, right? So it's everything. Everything that they say is marketing. It falls under the marketing communications umbrella. It's the tactics that makes these things happen. So story is communication. Marketing is the vehicle to take that story out. And founders or business owners, if they don't have that background knowledge, they don't know what they're doing. This is not their expertise. They shouldn't know what they're doing. They have to work with experts who understand the structure and the infrastructure of that type of department and help it build it out for them that aligns with the business goals that the executive wants to achieve. you know the marketing communication is like the amplifier to achieve those goals.
Yeah.
It also drives sales, right? So it's all interconnected in the end. Because you can have a vision of where you want to get in 5 years, but if you're not investing in a cohesive and holistic way of getting there from communication and marketing perspective, it will just stay a vision, or maybe you will not get there quick enough as you want to. Because what we do when we tell our story outside, and when we build the executive presence, when we build the company reputation and more visibility, it's just more eyeballs, right? It's just more eyeballs on you, on your company, more awareness. That's how it all works.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because you keep on mentioning storytelling. And, in social media, my experience has been that a lot of times when things go viral, it's because there was a story. There was like, somebody like was engaged. They were like, oh my gosh, I want to know how this story ends because then I'll stay and watch this video or I'll read this blog or I'll do whatever. But from your perspective, from like a big picture standpoint, because again, I think us as business owners, we're too in the weeds. Like we're literally like, what video should I create today? Whereas when you're talking about storytelling, like what does that mean to you? And how does that affect the company or the leadership presence? And what, like, I just think that we don't understand exactly what that means.
Yeah, storytelling as a word could be very scary, because when we grew up with stories in the books, right? That's how we associate storytelling. It's the book that my mom or my dad read to me at night, right? Storytelling, it's infusing your imagination. In a business world, storytelling is what I touched on earlier, right? It's how do you open the curtain to your business and show the people, show the values that you run this business by, and communicate that, because that essentially builds trust and loyalty with the customers, and the audiences that you're trying to reach. If you're keeping everything hidden, like a lot of large organizations, they're still stagnant. They're very slow to change. That executive presence is shielded, between multiple rounds of walls and glass walls and elevators and high storied buildings. But the more you open up, the more human your company becomes, and the more connection you will build. That's what story helps, essentially. You show how you run your business. You're not afraid to be honest and be transparent, and that is difficult to achieve for executives, right? Well, if I say this, how is it going to be perceived? Of course, we have to be mindful. We can't damage the company's reputation. That's why having PR team is important, to ensure that we're not saying something externally that will in the end harm the company. But that openness is what people are looking for these days, and that storytelling is through that openness, right? You show what you're doing, you create videos. Again, I recognize the time issue, and that's the biggest roadblock for anybody to start doing something differently. But if you just start slowly, small steps, and then grow into that, test it out, then it becomes a habit over time. You just have to invest time and commitment. That's what boils down to. If you're not committed, if you're just doing sporadically, you're never going to achieve what you want to achieve. So it has to be consistent, and you have to commit. You have to say, okay, from now on, this is what we're doing. I'm going to make the time to do it.
Oh yeah, I think consistency definitely in social media is necessary. But one of the things that I think is interesting, and this kind of gets to it, but when I think of storytelling, right? And I'm the founder and I'm the head person. I'm thinking you want me to tell a story about me. Like what I did, but you're really not telling that because a lot of times people will do like a video about the owner and how you founded the business, or they do a video about going into your plant, your warehouse, and walking through like what is the consumer experience going to be when they go to your site or they go to your office or they meet with your people. But there's storytelling that what you're talking about is really sort of like telling the story of the business. And that might actually make some people feel a little bit better because they're in and maybe it's about the values of the business or it's about some of these key things, but it's not necessarily like the personal story of the owner, right? Or is that one piece of it?
It's kind of all of the above, honestly.
Okay.
I strongly believe in humanizing companies, and humanization comes through people storytelling in the end, right? So no matter how successful the business concept concept business is, right? In the end, it's driven by people inside that business. So people stories are important. And founder stories, I think, are crucial, especially for the investor community, right? Showing the plant that you referenced, that gives that visibility again. Oh, look, they have that. It's not just some marketing fluff, that I saw. They actually do have. They do actually grow some whatever organic things in that plant, and I can see it, and now I want to visit that farm or whatever, right? So, all businesses are run by people, but yes, it's very difficult to tell your own story. And the easy way to actually tell your own story, if somebody's interviewing you, on camera, because if you're just trying, it's actually difficult for me as well to just start blurting things about me. But I know that if somebody's asking me a specific question that shows curiosity, then people open up. So sometimes these contents have to be kind of produced, so of somebody who understands the storytelling, extrapolating that from the founder, creating multiple pieces of content out of that one interview is very valuable. You just invest once, but you can have different things going out there through the let's say 3 months, the span of 3 months, and then you come back and you revisit some other topic, right? Again, how does that tie to the business? Maybe one quarter is this theme, another quarter is that theme, and just continue weaving in through various types of content, video, posts, quotes, carousels, whatever you want to do, and again, with AI tools these days, sometimes it's very easy to convert a like a static post into some sort of motion post, right? That catches the attention. You don't have to do a lot of crazy things like in not olden times, but 10 years ago, right? When you had to hire the whole production team, and have this whole thing going on. You really can do very minimalistically with very minimal setup, good storytelling, because people have become very forgiving after COVID. They
But
look for story.
even if you have a strategy would understand that for a video about your founder and your company and your location, you should absolutely spend some money to do that because you're going to do it once, right? And it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be utilized and you can get B-roll and you can get other things. The shorts and the reels should be more AI, kind
Mm-hmm.
of created because you need a lot more of them. Like you don't need to spend tons of money. So having a strategy up front kind of helps you identify where are you spending your money, where are you not spending your money. One of the things that I think that you might be able to help us is like, what are some mistakes that you see
Mm.
some leaders make? And, are these mistakes that really affect everything? I know there's PR things that could happen, but what other communication mistakes do you see that really affect their presence in the market?
Well, one of the key things, they're not communicating to begin with. They think everything is under control, and that causes confusion inside the organization, right? If let's imagine the company is growing at a fast pace, and marketing team or communication team needs to understand, okay, what's the next thing that we have to focus on, and this is never communicated, right? Let's say the CEO just runs with it, comes up with idea, tells somebody on his team direct report, hey, this is what we should do. This person, the next down the chain, comes to the marketing team, we should be doing this. Why? There was no explanation why now we have to change the gears and focus on this, right? So a lot of times, as the company grows, executives just forget that they have to communicate. As when the teams are small in the beginning, you can have these chit chats and conversations and everybody's kind of on the same page. When you start hiring, when it's 600 people, 1,000 people, that's it. You have to have consistent executive communication program that continuously feeds the information down the chain and aligns the teams. You can't operate and be successful and have a strategy that works without knowing where you're headed.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we do internally, but we also see business owners kind of be successful at is that as the executive, you do have to maintain some of that big thought leadership, right? Those big concepts, or your executive team. Like if you have an HR or a finance or things like that, you could have kind of communication or creating information in those different pipelines. What is some of your advice for how somebody could, present themselves better, or start to analyze what they're doing in order to know if they need to kind of get a strategist in there and take a look at everything?
Well, I think one of the symptoms or several symptoms would be that employees are constantly confused. They constantly keep asking the same questions, right? So that's an indication. Or employees leave because they're unhappy, and then let's say through HR exit interviews, maybe there's some information there that could be a common thread identified, a common thread between why all these employees are leaving. Um, and and honestly, a lot of times executives just, like I said, they don't know what they don't know. I don't know what I don't know, you don't know what you don't know, and you can't expect everybody to just be proficient in every aspect of the business, right? And communication and marketing is just this vague bubble, is so mysterious to a lot of people and leaders in the organizations, that they just think it's somehow with a magician's wand things will just happen, but they don't. There's always a why. There's always, what's driving certain decisions, and how do we amplify those decisions through the marketing tactics that we use.
Well, and I think that, if we talk just a little bit about like if this really resonated with some people, the reality is just focusing on social media, just focusing on, okay, I want to have a strategy for LinkedIn. Like holistically, and you could take TikTok, for example. TikTok went away, albeit for a very short time, but it potentially could go away again. And you've had, social media sites that have appeared and disappeared. What what kind of focus, if they're really wanting to look at a bigger holistic strategy, how could they reach out to you? How can they, get a better idea and not just focused on one little, like it's almost like they're just going at the symptoms and not the bigger picture, which is, do you have a cohesive strategy? How could they start to work with you or reach out to you? I know we have your email and I can certainly share that. But what would be their next steps if they're just kind of like, I have 10 different people doing 10 different things and I don't know if any of them are
Mm-hmm.
working?
Yeah, I have a downloadable checklist that anybody can go to my website, Loretta.today, Loretta with one T, dot today, and download it. I have the presence checklist for the company level questionnaire, and then executive presence level. So if anybody is interested, they can download. It's a free asset for now, and then kind of assess what the score looks like. It's an interactive checklist, and that will based on the questions that they check marked will be the indication what those problems exist right now that they did not mark as okay, we're doing this right. So that would be, one of the first things I always tell people to do. Just assess yourself to see where you're at, and this informs again me. Okay, what do I see out of this questionnaire? How can we now start plugging the holes, in your presence problems? So that would be one thing I would advise to you. And obviously, I have we can schedule a free 30-minute consultation. I call it from chaos to clarity consultation. So if you feel everything is chaotic, you have no grasp or no understanding how to streamline things, you need somebody who understands communication and marketing. Period. If you're at a point where you feel that some things are not effective, or you feel that visibility is not there, you just have to hire people or bring them on board who understand communication and marketing, and give you that peace of mind that things will get done, and they will be aligned to where your business vision is.
Yeah, because for the most part, marketing, advertising, PR, all of those areas, when we hire somebody, we're hiring them to execute on a strategy, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
hiring them to do whatever we want them to do. And if you're confused about what you need to do or where you need to focus, then we're really saying come back to work with somebody like Loretta, who is focused first on the strategy. Like, and I try to tell clients as well, like, if you go viral, are you ready? Are
Mm,
you going to make me, because we've had, clients and affiliates go viral. And guess what? They didn't
mm,
have anything to offer. They didn't have a product, or they didn't have a service, or they didn't have a funnel. They didn't
mm,
have any of these systems. And so I think
yeah,
that the social media is sort of like that blinking light that we're all
yeah.
kind of geared towards. But if you don't have a strategy, you could be doing a lot of money and things and it'd be wasted, right?
Yeah, and to your point, are you ready to grow? Because I look at the three P's: people, process, presence. You know, so do we have the right people to deliver on that strategy? Do we have the right processes to align and execute and be efficient by implementing that strategy? Again, let's say the example of the funnel. Okay, do we even have the tool that we use? If let's say we're taking in the information, where does it go? Recently I was talking to a company, and they did not have the all the intakes from the website were just sitting on the hosting server. And I said, do you know how much wealth you're leaving on the table? Because nobody is actually reaching out to these people right now. They just put in the information, they probably got something, you know, as an answer, or maybe not even an answer because nobody actually monitored where those contacts went and where those emails went, and then they ended up not wanting to use it because, well, we didn't legally sign off that we can, you know, it's again, it's tactics, it's understanding the mechanism of communication and marketing that a lot of people don't understand, so they don't know how to connect the dots, right? And in the end, when we fix efficiency, when we fix people problem, that just helps with that presence, right? Then you can become more present everywhere, internally and externally.
Wow, that was so much information, and I really appreciate you, Loretta. But I think we probably have enough to digest. And now, again, reach out or go to our website so that you can kind of figure out what your presence looks like. But I would say if you don't know if you're really putting out a good cohesive communication marketing strategy, you probably are not. That should
Mhm.
probably be your first sign, and it's hard. So get a strategy, put the right people into play, and somebody like Loretta could really help you do all those things. So I appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. Maybe we'll see you back again soon and talk about more executive presence topics. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you as well, Melissa. Happy to have shared the knowledge.
All right.